Hello, listeners. If you remember, in April, I covered the case of Thomas Stephen Blake, who went missing from Big Spring, Texas in early August of 1987. Tom was a truck driver, and after he went missing, his big rig was found idling with a whole load of onions in a rest area several miles from Big Spring, where Tom was last seen. Inside the truck, police found his cigarettes, ID, and other personal items. He was believed to have been with a woman at the time who went by the name Jennifer. It's not clear if Tom fled on his own accord or if foul play was involved. In April, I spoke with Tom's sister Linda about his disappearance. In this follow-up episode, I talked to Linda's husband Jim, a former police officer. Jim and I discussed Tom's disappearance and the theory that he might have been involved in running drugs or contraband. Here's my conversation with Jim. So why don't we start? I want to know more about you, because Linda was saying you're a former police officer, now retired?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about, where you worked and what you did and that sort of thing?
Okay. Just after high school, I went in the Army for 8 years and came back here. I joined the local police department. Back then it was the Alamogordo Department of Public Safety. I went to the police academy in Santa Fe. I joined the force October of 87, and I went to the academy February of 88. Graduated, came back, was patrol officer for 7 years, and then became a sergeant. And when I was sergeant, I was transferred to the detective division for a couple of years. And then I came back and on the street and continued to progress in the department, and when I retired, I was the captain in charge of patrol and fire operations. And I retired in October of 07.
Wow, good for you. That's quite the illustrious career. How many years total were you in law enforcement for?
It was a total of 23. I retired at 20, and then I ran a misdemeanor probation unit for 3 years after I retired, and was tired of dealing with the same old people all the time. So I officially retired from law enforcement then.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you from the area? Like, where did you grow up?
Well, I was an Air Force brat. I was born in Florida, but we moved all over the country. We moved here to Alamogordo when I was 11 years old. And so I was raised here in the local area. Graduated from the Alamogordo High School, and like I said, went in the Army and then came back. And
that's kind of like, I'm from Canada up north there, and I've been down. I think the only place in Texas I've been is Amarillo, and I've been to Albuquerque. Is where you're talking about, like, kind of on the border of New Mexico, Texas, but in the New Mexico side, right? That's where you and Linda live?
Yeah, we're about 80 miles north of El Paso, which is right on the border.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're still pretty close, though.
Yeah, we go over. I was down there yesterday. I had to go pick up my daughter-in-law at the airport in El Paso, and we go down there quite often. And that was actually my last duty station in the Army, was at Fort Bliss there in El Paso.
Right, and when you were a police officer, was it primarily in the district you're in now that you retired in?
Yes.
Okay.
Alamogordo.
What's that area like now? Like, it was funny. I was just watching a movie the other night, and obviously it's a movie, but it was about the what's going on in Juarez and El Paso with the cartels and whatnot. Is it still, like, obviously we get ripples of the news up here when it's really bad, but is it still pretty violent down there right now, or is it subsided a little bit? Do you hear a lot about it in the news? What's the general vibe?
We used to hear about it in the news all the time. You know, when they were having over 300 murders a year down in Juarez and stuff because of the cartel. It's I think that it's not much better, but the news doesn't report on it as much as they used to. We were we were part of a federal program here called HIDA back when I was a cop, and I think we believe we still are because it's called a high-intensity drug trafficking area. And what that is just they come through this area to distribute their drugs to the rest of the country. So they'll come through here and go to Chicago, or they'll come up through New Mexico and head out to Los Angeles or wherever. But we used to get special money to run operations and stuff to do interdiction back in the 90s and 2000s.
And that mean...
So we...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we still see things periodically about immigration, illegal immigration and stuff down on the border. A lot of towns that are, within 20 miles of the border have big issues dealing with it, with the numbers of people coming through, and that has been in the news a lot lately. The overwhelming numbers of undocumented people coming into the country.
Yeah, I can imagine. Before we get into Tom's case, there's a couple things. I mean, this is obvious, I think, but maybe not. But it seems like the main, maybe so much not so much now, but definitely in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, that the main conduit to getting drugs in the United States was from Juarez through El Paso. Is that still kind of the case, as far as you know, and based on your experience in law enforcement?
Yes, sir. That's, as I understand, it's still going on.
Yeah, I just, even if you Google it on the news, there's tons of articles about smugglers getting caught. Linda mentioned that when you were, and this is kind of where we can get into Tom a little bit, was that when you were, an officer and taking some training, they gave you some sort of course where they talked about how smugglers would use big rigs filled with, vegetables or produce or whatever to smuggle drugs in. Do you recall that? And like, what was the training like, or what was the information like that you got about that?
Well, like I said, at the time we were designated as a high intensity drug trafficking area. So when I was a detective, they sent us to a drug interdiction school. The feds were running a project back then called Project Pipeline, and it was to deal with all the drugs coming across the border. Well, part of the class, it was all classroom stuff, was about how they're we're using semi-trucks and trailers to get big loads into the country. And some of the compartments they would use, the things they would use to throw the dogs off, indicators that you might look at that might show that a person is smuggling at the time. And they showed us, actual pictures and videos and stuff of vehicles that they had seized and drivers they had caught. And I believe that was a 1-week course, like I said, we went to, and they showed us all kinds of different things.
I'm sure you're hearing about it from colleagues too at the time. Sorry, this is, I was just fiddling with some settings when you were telling me about the dates of when you were in law enforcement. What year would this have been? Was this the early 2000s, late 90s?
Yeah, let's see, 87, it would have been in 92 or 93 when I went to that school.
Oh, wow. So that's really only 4 or 5 years after Tom goes missing, too.
Right.
Wow. When did you... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I didn't want to... I didn't realize it was that close in time, and so that's actually like really applicable. It's still something that they do to this day. Like I said, I was on Google News the other night there after I talked to Linda, and they're still getting caught all the time at the border with... big rigs full of drugs. When did you, I mean, I know you and Linda have been together for a while. When did you first hear about Tom's disappearance? I mean, obviously it was probably from her, but, what did you think? Like, did you immediately kind of piece together a theory based on what you had learned in law enforcement and the geographical location you're in, or did it take some time to get there? Like, what was your initial thoughts?
Well, I had just been hired by the department, but hadn't started working with them when Tom came up missing. I took care of the kids when Linda, her dad, and her brother went down to Big Springs after it had been reported that they had found his truck and was missing. And when she got back, she told me about the truck was running. and the door was open, and that there were like his cigarettes and stuff. The guy was a heavy smoker, and he would not have left the truck to either go out and go to the bathroom without taking a pack of cigarettes with him. So I was real suspicious about that. And me and Tom never really got along very well. I always thought that he was a little bit shady. I don't know if you know what I mean. Not up and up all the time. And I after she come back, and I was thinking, and then like I said, this was just at the very beginning of my law enforcement career. I was thinking that he thought he was smarter than whoever he was working for, cartel or other smugglers or whatever. And at the time, that was my bet, was that he had tried to screw them over by either stealing the money or the drugs, and that's how come he had come up missing, that they had taken him. But we've had, but Linda came back, said they had talked to a clerk in a store and said that they had seen him and the woman that he was supposedly had been with. So it kind of made me put, well, maybe not, maybe something else happened, but I couldn't figure. Then I figured, well, the guy owed money all over, and I think he was in trouble for back taxes. And I thought, well, okay, if he wasn't killed by the cartel trying to outsmart them, he's trying to get off the grid, change his identity so he could get away from some of his bills and taxes and stuff. But then, like I said, I think it was 93 or 94, I went to that drug interdiction school, and I can't remember them all, and I apologize for that. But there were 21 indicators. And I do remember the only indicator that he did not have. They said a lot of smugglers who were smuggling drugs would wear expensive jewelry like Rolexes and gold rings and things like that. In case they had to go on the run, they could pawn them and get money and stuff for them, sell them. And that's the only thing. He didn't wear a lot of jewelry, but every other of the 20, all of them had hit. He had been doing. So I was like, well, I'm back that he tried to screw over the cartels. And that's what I believe today, is that he thought he was smarter than them, tried to rip them off, and they killed him for it.
Do you think then the truck, like the way he went missing and the way the truck was found and the woman that he was supposedly missing with, and then, the subsequent sightings, like, was he trying to go into hiding to get away from the cartel? Or, I mean, like, how do you think have you ever thought about how that played out and why he would have maybe left the truck running, or maybe he wasn't the one who left the truck running? I don't know.
Yeah. I imagined, and what I thought was they just came up and snatched him out of the truck, and they didn't care whether it was running or not. The subsequent sightings and stuff, I'm just going to be honest with you, is I believe people are either bullshitting or they're mistaken. Lyndall, he just now told Linda the other day that Tom had tried to rip off the cartel, but I don't trust him either. I didn't like him at all when I would see him and meet him and Tom when they were here in town. But that's that's the feeling that I had. So I either think he's bullshitting for some reason, or he's just out and out lying, but I don't know. I wouldn't trust anything that he had to say.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about him. I actually haven't reached out yet. Linda gave me his Facebook page, but I wanted to actually pick your brain about him, because I also, I don't know, the way just Linda described him and how he kind of changed his stories a few times, I was like, he doesn't sound super reliable. So do you know, like, how were Lyndall and Tom really good friends? Like, what was their relationship like, and how did you know Lyndall? Just through Tom, I'm assuming?
Just through Tom. And like I said, I wasn't a fan of Tom's at all either. He'd do shit like when I wasn't around, he wouldn't do it around me, but when I wasn't around, he'd come up to Linda and try to borrow money and things like that, because me and Tom did not see eye to eye. I don't think he liked me and I didn't like him. But that's how I knew Linda. We'd run into him like up at Linda's parents' house or at a barbecue and stuff, and I just didn't care for him.
Did you get the vibe that him and Tom were like good friends or just casual acquaintances? Like, was there no?
They were good friends. They from what Linda's told me and what I saw, they hung around a lot together. So I would say, and I think they knew each other for quite some time. I think they were both went to school together or something. But Tyler, I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do think that they were good friends and they'd known each other for a while.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just trying to gather as much information before I reach out to him because, like I said, if I do talk to him, I want to be weary of what he says and, know where he's coming from. I think that's the guy that's named Dale something or other on Facebook, right? That's the same guy I'm thinking of that Linda would have sent me.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Now, Linda believes him. No, she talked to him, and we talked about it quite a bit the other night, and she believes that he had lied to keep the family from looking down on Tom for getting involved with drugs and stuff. I don't know. I just, like I said, the story changes, and you might have a whole different opinion when you talk to him. I haven't talked to the guy in 30 years, so I don't know. So I don't want to bias you when you talk to him because he might, there's always that chance he might be telling the truth.
Yeah, no,
but
absolutely.
I have always got the feeling that he doesn't.
Well, no, and that's good. Like, I really, respect your opinion too. I mean, having been in law enforcement for so long, you probably have a pretty good bullshit detector. So that's, me being a journalist, I think I've got a pretty decent one too. I can usually tell when people aren't telling me the truth or are trying to hide something. So I'm gonna see if he'll talk to me, and then we'll just go from there. I was saying to Linda, like, between her mom's journals that she's left, which are incredible, like the amount of detail.
Yeah, they're unbelievable, man.
Yeah. What did you make of this Jennifer person, this woman that Tom was apparently with? Did you ever meet her? Like, what did you think? And then the description that her mom left behind and her apparently going missing with Tom, like that seems very odd to me too.
Well, yeah, I never met her. Matter of fact, when I was busy working when him and Jennifer came into town. I know Linda met them up at her mom and dad's house. So everything I got about Jennifer was through Linda. I never met her, but we did try to locate her and stuff. I tried to help Linda locate her when this first happened and was unable to run it down. We ran something down where I know Linda told you, but it was something where she was the daughter of some veterinarian, famous veterinarian or something, but I can't really tell you anything about Jennifer Downs other than very little. But I never met her.
Yeah, and it's weird that the none of the newspaper clippings from the time, there's not very many, but the ones that I found, they don't mention, I think maybe one of them mentions a woman, but a few of them don't. And so it's very peculiar. It's something I'm going to try and look into as well. It might be pretty tough if it's been so long, but you'd think if that she went missing with Tom, someone somewhere would have reported her missing, right?
Yeah. You'd think that they would have reported it and that the local police or sheriffs would have been at least open a missing persons file or something down there in Big Springs. But like I said, I'd never seen anything about it. I go back to Linda when she went down there looking for him. There was a woman in a convenience store who said that she had seen Tom with a woman that matched the description of that Jennifer.
That's bizarre. I guess Linda was telling me, I talked to her over a week ago now, but that she was just about to get in touch with who the current law enforcement agency that has her brother's case. Are you aware of that? Have you and Linda been able to get in touch with someone? I'm assuming Tom's case still has to be open.
She got a hold of a sergeant that was very helpful in Big Springs. And he had said that the case had been turned over to the FBI, and Linda had told him about the journals and things, and he had told Linda that the agent would be very interested in what we had or what she had, and that he'd be contacting her. But as far as this morning, Linda hadn't been contacted by anybody from the FBI or anything.
Is that strange that they would have turned the case over to the FBI?
Yeah, I try to look at it from how we did things in our department and stuff. And I do not know why it would be turned over to a federal agency unless the feds came in and requested it. Otherwise, it should be the local jurisdictions. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not FBI, Texas Rangers. That's who they turned it over to, excuse me.
And is that pretty standard protocol? Like, I don't know, just because I don't know the U.S. Justice system or law enforcement system that well.
Well, the Texas Rangers they're different. We don't have anything like that in New Mexico, but they're kind of like the state police. And again, I do not know why you would turn it over to another law enforcement organization. We still have some cases here of missing persons that we believe were homicides and stuff back in the 80s that we still looked at once a year. We never turned them over to another department. So, I think that's a little bit different or strange to me. It was. I was like, why would you do that? I have no idea, unless the Rangers or somebody came across something and they were tying it together with multiple incidents. Is the only reason why I think you'd involve a higher agency into something like this. But that, again, is a guess. I don't know how they work down there.
No, totally. And it's so funny, though, that this is adding to my theory that I'm building, is that I've got a lot going on right now, and I'm going away for a week at the beginning of April. But when I get back, I want to start looking into other disappearances in that same area. And I've already found a couple that are very similar to how Tom went missing and are kind of the same demographic. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, I wonder if this is part of a pattern of, people who are either smuggling or working with smugglers or the cartels or something. And, it's a time when there's not a lot of technology in terms of people being able to report on this stuff and piece the dots together as easily as we can now. So I was thinking it might be worth some time to kind of look and see if there are some patterns. And yeah, that little bit about the Rangers is interesting. I'll message Linda later and ask her to keep me updated on that, because I'll be curious to see what they say when they reach out to her, if they do.
Yeah. And I got something else, and I don't remember which department it was. I don't remember who the primary was down there, either the sheriffs or the city police in Big Springs. But I was asking Linda a few years ago, 8-10 years ago, about Tom's personal effects, and if she had ever gotten anything, if anybody in the family had ever received what was left in the truck. And I don't know if I'm sure they're, truckers, that's like their apartment. So I assume there would be like some pictures and maybe some letters and, crap like that. And she had contacted that department. And now this is strange to me, because open cases, you don't do this. They said that the property had been destroyed. They had moved from one location to another, and the property had been destroyed. And when we had a missing person or an unsolved homicide and stuff, those things were archived and we reviewed them every year. So I was kind of pissed when she told me that. So I don't know. And you might bring that up to her and ask her, because that just popped in my mind. I had forgotten that.
You know what? I think she did mention it to me, and it was a detail that slipped through the cracks on my end. Because that, to me, I think Linda mentioned another theory that's been floated, is that he's in WITSEC because of, whatever nefarious activity he might have been involved in. And it seems to me like if you're going to destroy someone's property or say it's destroyed, that would be a good reason to do that, right?
Right. Yeah, I didn't think it. That's that would be a good reason, because I couldn't think of anything else. Because here, if we had to destroy property on a case, we had to go to the district attorney, and they had to get paperwork and whatever to get over to destroy the property, but we would never have done it on a missing person or an unsolved homicide. Other things have statute of limitations and stuff. So after the statute of limitations run out, you're allowed to destroy it. But something for, like I said, a missing person or a homicide, you keep. And then, hell, a lot of crimes have been solved because back then, when I first started, there wasn't DNA. And they've solved a lot because people collected blood or whatever. And 20 years later, they were able to get a DNA match. So that's why you didn't destroy that stuff.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. That's really weird about because I remember Linda did mention that, and we did talk about that. Yeah, I'm going to keep picking at it along the way because there's lots to pick at. It's just going to be a matter of what falls out, I think, because there's a lot of oddness around this, and I get a weird feeling when I start looking into it. I don't know about you, but my skin crawls a little bit, and so that's why I think he didn't. I don't know if he left on his own.
Yeah, but I have. I could go either way, and it would be nice for me to know, but I know it'd really be nice. Linda thinks about him quite a bit. I don't want to say every day, but there's several times a month. I know Tom pops up in her mind, and she wonders, what happened. I would like to tell you that every year that I was an officer, that I worked with the department, I checked through the National Crime Information Center to see if anything came up, and never got anything on him. So,
what do you mean? Like what would have come up? Like a death notification?
If he would have been arrested somewhere, if there would have been a warrant out for him, if a missing person came up looking like him, things like that. So, like I said, I checked it at the beginning. I checked it more often than each year. As years went by, I made sure to go back and get once. To see that if anything had turned up on him, and nothing ever turned up on Thomas S. Blake, his Social Security, anybody with the similar names. I'd look for things like that, but never saw anything. So,
wow,
that was another thing that either told me he was dead or Linda's theory about maybe witness protection. I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but people do every day. They change their identity, and it's not that difficult to do. Get another Social Security number and get a birth certificate or something of somebody who's passed, and assume their identity and things. So he could have done that if he was trying to avoid debts and stuff like that. That's what he did. So there's three, I think, viable scenarios that he might have done. Either he was killed, witness protection, or he just decided that he didn't want to be Tom Blake anymore to avoid what he owed.
If you know anything about Tom Blake's disappearance, please reach out to me or Linda Bird. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show appreciation, you can buy me a coffee at the link in the description. If you want to support the podcast on a monthly basis, you can head to the Patreon. For $5 a month, you get ad and sponsor-free episodes, exclusive content, and early access to all new episodes of the podcast. For those of you who bought me a coffee or subscribed to Patreon in the last few weeks, thank you. Thanks for listening to the Missing and Unexplained podcast.